Okay, we're back. We're live. It's Thursday. This is Think Tech Talks. We're talking about community matters, and community does matter here on Think Tech. Today we're going to talk about healthcare at the Lanai Community Hospital with our host on Lanai, Alberta Jetley, who is a farmer, a journalist, a lady about town, and a TV host here on Think Tech, and her guest, Nick Hughey, from Lanai Community Hospital. So why don't you take it away, Alberta, and interview Nick for us, okay?
Aloha everybody from the island of Lanai. We've got a beautiful day outside after yesterday's heavy rains. And I'm presently in the Lanai Changes conference room, which is located in the Dole Administration building with my good friend, Nick Hughey.
Hello.
Nick, would you like to say a few words and introduce yourself to our audience?
I really want to thank Jay and Alberta for having me here today to talk about Lanai Community Hospital. My name is Nick Hughey. I'm the Regional Administrator of Critical Access Hospitals for Hawaii Health Systems Corporation, my region, which we'll hear a little bit more about what that is. But I do have direct oversight of the hospital here on Lanai, also Kula Hospital on Kula, and also have some responsibilities at Mine Memorial Medical Center. Excited to be here. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So you came over on expeditions this morning. What time did you come in?
Oh, I came in on the Mokulele flight this morning.
Mokulele.
Yeah, Mokulele, yes. And so they're always on time, pretty prompt, those guys. So I really appreciate that, you know, the multiple ways of being able to get to the island. So glad to be here.
Yes, not many people know about Mokulele, but they've been providing flight service between Lanai and Maui, and also Lanai and Kona.
Cool.
So from Lanai, did you know you can get to Kailua Kona in an hour and 15 minutes?
My goodness, that's pretty good.
It's really good. You have a 15-minute stop at Kapalua Airport, and then you're on your way.
On your way.
Yeah, so it's a really good flight. I took Mokulele a few weeks ago, and instead of flying, you know, through the McGregor Point way, we flew around past Kaanapali. It was beautiful. I haven't flown that way for years.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, we're fortunate to be here on Lanai. It was beautiful, and Maui and all over. So lucky we live Hawaii Day, they say. So glad to be here.
So how much time do you actually spend on Lanai? How often do you come over to the island?
Sure, fair question. I probably come over once every other week and stay overnight sometimes for a couple days every other week. We do have a direct assistant administrator who does day-to-day responsibilities for Lanai Community Hospital, Carol Starbird, which Alberta is very familiar with. But originally when I had the direct oversight, I was here a couple, 3 days a week. But since we're in such good hands with Carol now, I'm able to spend a little less time directly on Lanai, being able to work on more of the big picture issues for Lanai, where Carol really helping to charge forward with the day-to-day service.
Are you involved in any of the renovation work that is going on? The state has a lot of projects going on here now.
Here at the hospital, yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
can you tell us about
Absolutely, fair enough. We have a $2.7 million project which has been going on for about the last 2 years. We're almost through with it. We will be done in the next 2 months, but we have totally renovated our emergency room, which Alberta came to our blessing and helped us with flowers and always doing great stuff in the community. Thanks so much with our auxiliary. So that was good. So we totally redone our emergency room. We've also fixed our lab, and we've also added, the part that I'm really excited about is we're gonna finally have our formal waiting room for our emergency and outpatient services. You know, in the history of the hospital, which has been here since 1962, this current building, we've not truly even had a waiting area where people could formally sit and wait. And so you think that that's not a big issue, but it's actually a really big issue. And also our emergency room, you know, you've seen it, and without really the pictures, it's hard to say, but we really went from sort of an antiquated, very small room to a modern looking acute emergency room. So we're very fortunate to the state and the community who rallied behind the project. Again, $2.7 million is just in that emergency and lab and outpatient renovation. We have an additional $1 million of renovation, which is going to be starting very shortly. We do have $700,000, which has been fully encumbered from the state to do a full photovoltaic system for our roof. And we've also just last session had $300,000 allocated for a new roof. And we're now looking at, in addition to that, another $100,000 for new x-ray equipment. So little by little, anytime with the patients and everybody, we're really turning the face of the hospital around and the infrastructure.
You know, when Jay, you'd probably be very interested in this, but the Lanai Hospital replaced the old Dole Plantation Clinic, which used to be almost in the same area. And the hospital was actually built by donations by the pineapple field workers. They signed payroll deduction slips, some of them, 50 cents a week, they were donating to the hospital fund. And the hospital actually opened in April 1968 with donations from the pineapple field workers on Lanai. So, they actually owned this hospital. It was their hospital.
Right.
And we would like to try to get that feeling of this is our hospital,
Right.
and we need to do everything possible to make it the best in the state. How do you feel about getting more of the community members involved?
Well, one of the things we did last year to really do, first step of that is I took over direct oversight in May of 2013 of Lanai Community Hospital. And one of the first things I really wanted to do was step back, to increase our community involvement. So we started to actively participate much more with putting out health education forums, participating in health fairs, doing different stuff for the community. But the biggest initiative we did is we restarted an auxiliary. I mean, Alberta is one of our pioneer members because, again, she's involved with lots of positive stuff on the island. But we started from scratch, just with the idea that, again, like Alberta said, historically the hospital has been owned in part, by the community. It's a part of the community, and we really wanted to get it back, opportunity for the community to support. So we started this auxiliary, and it's really sort of taken off. One of our first initiatives with the Serenity Garden, which is behind us, which again Alberta's helped us really, and Karen Green and a whole just cast of folks. It's auxiliary. Great. It's been a great initiative. We've raised some money, and we're getting close, starting for the first phase of our Serenity Garden. So that's just another example of initiative where the community is getting involved with the hospital. We want to further expand the auxiliary because some people want to do gardening, some people want to come in and read, some people want to raise money, but whatever it is that your interest is in the community and participating in the hospital, we want to be able to create the opportunity for you to do a better job of it. And I think that this auxiliary, we're so proud of their efforts and initiatives as we've gone forward. I don't know if you might want to say a few words about it, Alberta.
I do.
Yes.
I do. I want to brag a little bit about one of our board members. We have this wonderful board member. Her name is Karen Green. And she single-handedly, just within 1 week, raised, we needed, when we talk about the Serenity Garden, we can go out and get clippings from other gardeners, and we can do a lot of the stuff ourselves. But we want to have pathways, concrete pathways, where patients in a wheelchair or with a walker can comfortably navigate through the garden. And that means pathways, and pathways mean concrete on Lanai, which is very expensive.
Very expensive.
So Karen went out and single-handedly in 1 week managed to raise $11,000.
Wow. Yeah,
I was so proud of her. She just did a fabulous job. And then, when you start talking about, well, you've got money to pay for the concrete, how are you going to get it in place? Pulama Lanai, which is Mr. Ellison's company on Lanai, has offered to put in the forms for us. They're providing the forms. And Hansel Phillips, who is the general contractor doing the renovation work at the Four Seasons at Manele Bay, they're offering to do concrete work for us. And this is huge. When we were trying to figure out how much the garden would cost, I was thinking $4,000 or $5,000, maybe. We had one of our supporters is Trey Frank, and he's a licensed, registered, pretty well-known landscape architect. So he came in and he did the preliminary plans for us. And our Serenity Garden is estimated to be somewhere ballpark about $60,000.
Yeah.
So for a small island and for a small organization like us, it's like, oh wow, how are we going to do $60,000? But thanks to Pulama Lanai and Hansel Phillips and people like Trey Frank, we're on our way. We just need to find the flats now.
Yeah, and it's exciting because, again, little by little, these people have their energy and expertise, time, talent, and treasure And you can see people getting excited about the hospital. And then the thing is that when they're coming in to visit the hospital, and it's always nice to visit the hospital when you're not in the middle of an emergency or a loved one there, to really see the services that can be delivered and feel like you own a part of it, you have contributed. Because in addition to this allowing our residents to have a place to go and ambulate and move around and have just an additional pretty place that's pretty for all of their senses, we also envision this garden as being a place that the community can come, have a lunch, visit, hang out. I mean, so we really want it to be a dual project where it's community-based and also benefits the residents, the patients of the hospital. And like you said, Palama, Lanai, Alberta, we have the local bank manager, Aaron, is involved as our treasurer. So again, we're getting all the talents in the island together to work together to benefit the hospital, because the hospital provides all of the emergent and long-term care services and is the real keystone, the foundation of healthcare here on the island. And so it's just great to see everybody pitching in.
Alberta, can I step in for a minute? I just I want to ask a question or two and then go to a break. So, Nick, I'm just wondering what the what the arrangement is between the hospital and the state hospital system. You're
Sure.
part of the state hospital system, and I guess you're like a community health center here on Oahu. There's a number of them here, and you're funded primarily with state dollars. Is that how it works?
Okay, fair enough. We are part of Hawaii Health Systems Corporation, which is the public benefit corporation in the state, the safety net provider of healthcare in the state. We are a quasi-public benefit corporation of the state. We're our own entity. It's 14 facilities, including Kahuku now, that provide the services. You have 3 facilities in Maui County. You have 5 facilities, I think, on the Big Island, 2 facilities in Kauai, and you have the 2 long-term care facilities in Oahu. Not sure if my math had all added up, and Kahuku. So in total of 14 facilities. And HHSC was developed in 1996 when they split off from it used to be the Department of Health, had the Department of Hospitals, and they created just a corporation of Hawaii Health Systems Corporation. And what it does is it provides the safety net healthcare primarily on the neighbor islands, where you don't have the large volume to sustain or to ensure that on its own can be a viable hospital. Because in its essence, hospital provider business is a scale business. You got to have so much volume to be able to break even. And when you don't have enough people on a particular island to be able to break even, you have to have some subsidy to allow you to be able to operate. And so the state, this is the way that the state can ensure that health care. We're a little different than the FQH, the federally qualified health centers that you talked about on Oahu. We are a critical access hospital, which there are 10 of them in the state, none of them located on the island of Oahu. But we're a lot like an FQHC or the community health centers that you're talking about, except that we have the hospital component as well. We actually do have the inpatient hospital component, so we're like a community health center, but we're also the hospital. So we are federally designated, and we do get a special reimbursement from Medicare and Medicaid that gives us a higher reimbursement, which helps us offset some of it. So between the federal reimbursement that we get and the subsidy from the state and the monies that we get from payers, commercial payers, Medicaid, Medicare, and everybody, that's how we ultimately fund ourselves and remain viable.
So the individuals, the patients who come and see you have to have insurance or Medicare or Medicaid?
Some do, some don't. I mean, you can obviously, if you're uninsured, you can receive services from us because we are a 24 hours, 7-day-a-week emergency facility. We do have emergency care here. We do have a 3-bed emergency room here, so anybody can receive services from us irrespective of ability to pay or not to pay. But in our state, and especially on this island, there is a very small percentage of people who do not have some measure of insurance, whether it's commercial like HMSA or somebody who does have Medicare or Medicaid.
And you would see them anyway?
Oh, absolutely. We'd see anybody at any time.
That's great. That's Nick, did I pronounce it Nick Hughey?
Hughey.
And Alberta de Jetley, they join us by Skype from Lanai, I guess from the Community Health Hospital in Lanai. And this is Think Tech Talks. portraits of Lanai. Nick, you are designated a portrait now. You're a portrait of Lanai. We're going to take a short break. This is Jay Fidel. We'll be right back after this very short break.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
We're back, we're live, we're ThinkTech Talks talking about community matters and specifically portraits of Lanai. And today our portrait of Lanai is Nick Hughey. He's the director of the Lanai Community Hospital. And Alberta Jetley, who is the lady about town, farmer, journalist, and TV host, joins us to handle the show from Lanai. Take it away, Alberta.
You know, Jay, in the first part of the program where Nick was talking about the hospital, the old hospital room was just this, the emergency room was just this really, really tiny room. So if you had more than one person come in at a time for emergency room, you were literally side by side on gurneys with your feet touching.
Yeah, that's right.
And everybody, because it was an outside wall with an outside window, everybody in town could come and stand by the window and see what was happening to you. So
that's perfect.
It was okay. You know, we managed.
Yeah.
But when the new hospital emergency room opened, at the start of every year, I tell myself, this year, I am not going to go to the emergency room. About 4 or 5 days later, there I was in the emergency room.
You were one of our first customers.
I know. That was such a shock to me, too. But I took a picture for the emergency room with me in the paper for Lanai Today, and I had it on in the newspaper, so everyone said, "Did you pose for this picture?" And I said, that was real life. But we are very, very happy with all of the work that's great. And I wanted to ask Nick, Nick, what's your staffing like? Because every time I come up to the hospital, I see a lot of relief nurses from agency nurses.
Yeah.
What's happening there?
Great. We have 47 total staff. We have 8 full-time RN nurse positions and a little over 20 certified nurse aides positions. And then we also staff a 24/7 X-ray. I mean, the office hours are 8 to 5, but they're on call after 5 o'clock. But you can get an X-ray imaging, emergent imaging, any time of day. Same for lab. We do have a 24-hour, 7-day lab. We have a physician on staff, on call at all times, 24 hours a day. The physicians, we contract with Straub Hospital, who does have a primary care clinic here. So the physicians who work there in their clinic, some of those physicians also maintain and manage our emergency room services and our long-term care services. So we contract with them because as many economies as we can get on an island like this, so that we can share doctors, share resources. We're trying to do more of that, but we share the doctor part. Your question about the nurses is a difficult question. I mean, I wish everything I came to tell you today was a rosy picture. But the reality is that of our 8 full-time nurses, we fluctuated over the last year with 40 to 50% of them being seasonal nurses or people who come from other islands because we're not able to fill them with full-time people who have the skill sets and the desire to want to live on Lanai at the current time. The big issue for us, and it is a technical issue, so I don't want to get too far in the weeds for you, but the reality is that trying to find a nurse who has the skill set to work in a long-term care, because we haven't really gone into details, but we have 10 long-term care beds, which are traditional sort of nursing home bed, long-term care beds. We have swing beds for people who might need IV antibiotics or acute beds, I should say. Actually, we don't have swing beds here at Lanai, but we do have people who do come in and get like IV antibiotics antibiotics or wound care, whatever acute needs. So you got to have a nurse who can and at the same time have the ability to work in an emergency room where there are no other services. So you can really truly get a trauma, a drowning, a trauma, a car wreck, somebody, a hunting accident, a heart attack, a stroke, in which we do. You have to have a nurse who can pretty much practice in that whole continuum, that whole skill set. And that is very, very difficult to find people who have the desire, have the skill, and have the acumen, the training to be able to train in that whole full field of it. So we do sort of have so what we and also, you know, want to live on a smaller island sometimes. So it's really sort of a very niched and nuanced person you're looking for. So a lot of times we do have to supplement our regular staff with people who have experience in pretty much working in rural environments. We get a lot of people who work in Alaska, in Maine, some, you know, other, we get a lot of folks from those sort of more kind of consistent with our background who have the ability to do all of that. We are looking currently to work with Maui Memorial to do some more training for people to get, so that they can get the emergency skills. It's also hard, again, this is kind of in the weeds, but if you get a new nurse, a new graduate nurse, and you need them to learn emergency skills, medicine's all about redundancy. The more you do things, the better you get at it. We average about 4 ER visits a day. So you just can't really take a new nurse and expect them to get competent only being able to do 3 or 4 cases a day. So we have to be able to figure out how to get that nurse to a very busy emergency room where they can get the skills and come back. So we're working with Maui Memorial on some different initiatives. We have had some success. We have recently recruited two more additional nurses, but it is a constant struggle for us. Same thing with medical technologists, people who do the labs. Currently, we have a couple people who do per diem and live part-time on the island, but currently we have no full-time medical technologists, so we're always having to recruit people to come in, which does create a continuity issue. So we're looking at that issue, but that is a struggle for us.
Well, I've noticed that the nurses that you do get coming to Lanai seem to really enjoy the island, and they're very, very competent. They're very, very competent. They're pleasant to be around. And I think Lanai is, especially now that we have so much activity going on, Lanai is a really nice place to come to work for 2 or 3 months. So I think in the future you'll probably have more nurses applying.
Yeah, I agree. And we've had a couple, like I said, we recruited 2 recently, and we're just going to keep working at it. And with some more support, I think it's important for nurses too when they come into our community, because we've had travel nurses who come and stay. But when they see an auxiliary that's involved, if they see people coming to the hospital, if they see that the community is involved, and they're hearing positive things about the relationship between the community and the hospital, that only helps with retention and recruitment.
Well, I see your traveling nurses down at our thrift shop, because I also manage the Cat's Meow, which is at the thrift shop. I got to get in my plugs. The Cat's Meow is a thrift shop for the Lanai Animal Rescue Center. We're open from about 7:15 until 12:30 every Saturday. And all of the traveling nurses come down for little knickknacks, household things that they need. And we're all so happy to be able to find them the things they need to make their lives on Lanai a little bit more comfortable while they're here. But you've got some really good permanent staff too.
We absolutely
have some good old
permanent
timers.
staff, exactly. We have great, very tenured staff as well who provide that good transitional sort of handoff to our training and orientation. So we're so fortunate to have just a real good mixture. And it's also good sometimes periodically to have a travel nurse who comes in and can just sort of hey, this is what they're doing, this is a new thing, this is a new idea. But ultimately we want to grow our own. We do have a program where we do bring a couple of high school seniors over to get exposure to the hospital. We just working with UH Maui College. Just trained 9 new certified nursing assistants for the island. And again, that was a collaboration with the community. Yes, and
they're starting another class too.
Exactly.
So that's good.
So it's really good.
Do you see a future in nursing for Lanai youth that are looking at career opportunities?
Yeah, and not just nursing. Nursing is important. I'm a nurse by trade originally, but not just nursing. That's what we need to do a better job of, is exposing them to the lab part, to the X-ray part, to the there's other, and to the business part. Coders, people who can code bills and do the billing and doing that operation, that's becoming that's becoming a really needed trade and skill. That's something people can do. Not everybody can or wants to be a nurse, but there's a lot of skills in the hospital. And so that's what we're trying to do, is create opportunities to get them more exposure to different parts of the hospital as well.
So
do you mind if I break in for a moment? Just curious, Nick, about the equipment. You know, I wouldn't imagine you had a $1 million MRI machine over there, but I'd like to know what equipment you have and where the line is. In other words, what kind of case do you wind up referring to? Say a hospital on Oahu. So how do you handle that in terms of having the equipment and sending them back to Oahu when certain specifications are met?
Right, and that's a really, really good question. For us, our X-ray equipment is basic imaging equipment. We do not have an MRI or a CT. One because they're really costly, and the maintenance is really costly. We can't afford it, nor do we have the space. But we do have what's called risk pack system, which is basically a computerized system to where when we do send an image, it's automatically by computer sent to a computer that automatically sends the image to a radiologist based in Maui, and it's read and can be, so that the doctor here can work with the doctor there, and it's pretty instantaneous. So we do have the digital capacity with the risk pack, so that's one of the things we do. We do have some basic lab capabilities too, where we can do emergent lab stuff. We do have an ultrasound equipment in our emergency room. But primarily, we do ship a lot of cases, especially cardiac cases and stroke and major trauma. So we do a fair amount of transport. So we do, which is what critical access hospitals do a lot of times, is stabilize and transfer. So it just really depends on the specialty. We know we also don't deliver babies here, except emergent baby deliveries, and so there is prenatal capacity through the federally qualified healthcare center here, Lanai, up the hill.
Lanai Community Health Center
provides the prenatal care, but we do, generally people when they're getting close to delivery have to go off island, so that's one of the lines. But generally, if it's a major trauma or major cardiac stroke issue, we do transfer the patients out. We do have the capacity to do IV antibiotics, monitor people who who need wound care, pneumonias, basic issues. We certainly can take care of that and do a good job of it. Plus, any of the sort of low emergent sort of stuff that we see a lot: lacerations, fevers, pneumonia, sick, GI, that sort of stuff.
What about the kinds of transportation equipment, that one would imagine? For example, do you have an ambulance? For example, when you transfer a patient out either to Maui or Oahu, do you use mokulele? Do you use helicopter? Or do you use both? And what are the circumstances?
Sure. We do have an ambulance. An ambulance is a statewide system. The state funds it, not us directly. It's AMR who contracts with most of the neighbor islands, Maui County, American Medical Response, who does have a presence in Oahu as well for transport. So that is the ambulance service here, Station 13, which is actually fairly recent, just in the late 80s, before they had an ambulance here, which the old timers do tell me about the time. There was a time when on top of everything else they did, they actually ran the ambulance. Yes. So they would literally go out, just get in the ambulance. The maintenance guy drove the ambulance, the nurse went out. I mean, that's only since the 80s, if you think about late 80s since we've had that, but we've certainly progressed since then. So what you do now, there are various options for transfers. The vast majority of our transfers are patients who go on a fixed wing aircraft. There's two companies in Hawaii. AMR has a division that has fixed wing, and Hawaii Lifeline. Each of those are competitors, but they work in collaboration too, with coordination, depending on who can get here first. And we ship those patients either to Maui or we ship those people to Oahu. There is also in Maui County a helicopter service who will go to the scene. So if something was to happen at Manele, they wouldn't actually even come to the hospital. They would actually pick them up at the scene and take them directly to Maui Memorial.
One of my friends was in a near drowning at Huluhoi Beach Park, And very fortunately, the paramedics arrived on the scene, the helicopter arrived on the scene, and inside, well inside that golden hour, she was at Mount Memorial. So it's just an amazing service. But
That's great.
the medics have been wonderful. They're a terrific addition to our community.
That's great. Well, that's Nick Hughey. He's our portrait of Lanai today, and Alberta Jetley, who hosts the show from the Lanai Community Hospital in Lanai City there by Skype. This is Think Tech Talks, talking about community matters, and it does. We'll be right back after this break.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
We're back. We're live. This is Jay Fidel on Think Tech Talks, Community Matters, and it does. It matters on Lanai. We're talking about healthcare at the Lanai Community Hospital with Nick Hughey and our lady on the scene, Alberta Jetley, in Lanai City. And we're calling this Portraits of Lanai, and Nick is our portrait for today. So here we are in the third block of the show, and I'm turning it over to you again, Alberta. And maybe you can ask Nick about some of the issues and problems that have to be resolved going forward at the Lanai Community Hospital.
Well, before I ask him about the problems that he's facing at the hospital, I want to thank Nick for being our first guinea pig, because this is our very first show for Portraits of Lanai. We have a lot of other people who are waiting to appear on the show. They're all excited about it. But I really want to thank you, Nick, for being willing to be the first.
Oh, no problem. Well, I really appreciate all that you do. And Jay, thank you for the audience, the ability to have the chance to talk about the great hospital and the services we deliver.
Thank you, Nick.
Tell us, what are some of the issues that you see at the hospital or problems that you're encountering there?
Well, we talked briefly about some of them. One is we always are trying to look at how we can grow talent on Lanai, but also how we can recruit, continue to recruit people to the island. And a lot of the hospital's issues are the same as the island's issues. We have people sometimes who are interested in coming, but housing becomes an issue because, this becomes an issue if people want to purchase a home so housing is an issue just for the community, which affects the hospital. Also, as we see our census grow on the island little by little incrementally, we are also seeing it reflected in the hospital. Our ER volumes, our emergency room volumes are up about 20%, 25% year over year, almost 2 consecutive years. So that puts a little bit more strain on our resources. And then, our long-term care unit, which used to be at about an 80% census, is at about 100% census now. So we pretty much stay full on our long-term care component. So we're just much busier and much fuller. And the problem with, and I don't want to get too deep again in the weeds, but the reality is that when you have 3,000 people on an island, no ability to gain additional market share really because you already have sort of the market share, economically you're going to run a deficit. Just because fixed costs, all the fixed costs would go with running a hospital, even if it's a smaller bed count hospital, you still have all the, the equipment, all of the maintenance, all the stuff that's mandated, all the regulatory stuff, which you need to have, all the stuff for emergent care, civil defense stuff to prepare, all the equipment, and then all of the skilled staff, which is also going to be, can be expensive. You add it all up at the end of the day, it creates a subsidy. And so the more, and at the same time, you're having an aging population who's consuming more resources, and then you're also having a sort of a burgeoning of new people, and also people just wanting more services and saying, we'd love to be able to get more, more services here, more specialists on island. It'd be great if we have a CT, because if we had a CT, then we wouldn't have to send near as many people off island. How do you ultimately figure out how to afford that is what we are faced with. We do already get a pretty significant subsidy from the state, so it's really hard to say, we need, really, because, the state has a lot of competing agendas, and they give us a fair amount of money to begin with, so it's hard to say that we're going to be able to increase that subsidy, but we also want to make sure that we can deliver the service. So all of the stuff that we've been doing with the auxiliary, the relationship we developed with Palama Lanai, those are all the incremental steps, so relationships that we've done with Straub, our work with the Federally Qualified Health Center, little by little, trying to put all those pieces together. Because what we've got to do is create more and more economies of scale by having all of these groups partner together to be able to deliver the services. That's what we're looking at. There is legislation pending in this legislation. There's 3 bills that are there looking at private and public partnerships, allowing the state facilities to do more partnering with private entities, nonprofits, looking at operating models, all of these different initiatives so that we can meet the demand for service and also remain economically viable. That's the real challenge.
I really agree with you on being able to partner because, in the hospital auxiliary, we have Shirley Samonte, who is the office manager for Straub on Lanai, and she's agreed to be our president, and she's a wonderful asset. And serving as our secretary is a lady named new resident, Melissa Chaplin, and she is working with Hospice Hawaii on bringing hospice services to our island. So now we need to get someone from the Lanai Community Health Center to join our organization on our board so we can cover all of the services together. But
if we can better partner and put some jigsaw puzzle of that together, then you can cut out a lot of administrative overhead because you don't have to have 4 different bosses or 4 different entities that are headquartered on different islands that have different directions. If there's a way to create more of a partnership model where collaboratively we can share some of those fixed costs, that's how those dollars we can then reinvest in the CTs, more specialist contracts.
That's great. Economies of scale. Really, it's all about economies of scale. We're going to take one more last break, and when we come back, I hope you guys can discuss where this fits in the landscape of the new Lanai that's growing around you right now. The new Ellison Lanai with increases in activity and construction, population, what have you, all those great things coming. So this is Alberta Jetley acts as our host in Lanai. Nick Hughey is our portrait of Lanai today, and he is the director of the Lanai Community Hospital. This is Think Tech Talks. I'm Jay Fidel. We're broadcasting from Skype in Lanai and here at the Pioneer Plaza studio. We'll be right back after this break.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for Think Tech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
We're back. We're live. We're at Think Tech Talks, doing portraits of Lanai. Today we're talking about the health care at the Lanai Community Hospital with Alberta Jetley, lady about town in Lanai City, farmer, journalist, and TV host. And her guest, Nick Hughey, who is the director of the Lanai Community Hospital. Back to you, Alberta.
I have to ask Nick this very pointed question because I get asked this all the time by my young friends. Nick, do you ever think that we'll be able to have midwife services so that people can have their babies on Lanai and truly be born on Lanai instead of just born in Honolulu? What do you think?
Quite candidly and honestly, because I think we are a long way from there. If you really truly look at the clinical proficiency that you need to deliver babies, the fact that low volume places can run a mortality as high as 1, 2, 3%. That's not a risk that you're willing to take. I think we can do we can do more prenatal services, we can do more postnatal services, but on an island of 3,000 people, with the number of deliveries that you would have, redundancy again is the key. I mean, I think it's a great vision to have. But honestly, when I've talked to because I've gone and asked this question pointedly to a lot of clinicians, objective clinicians, and to a person, they said that your mortality would just be too high, your risk mortality would just be too high, that it just is not worth the risk at this point. We can always shoot for the future, but there's a lot we can do. So I don't want to, but that's going to be a difficult one.
In our community plan, which is still in draft form, the Lanai Planning Commission is working on it now. One of the things we've been talking about is doubling our population, that we would like to see our population come in at between 5,000 and 6,000 people. If we were able to double our population, where do you see the hospital going?
We are going to have to increase more services. We've already started looking at that. We would have, I mean, obviously we'd have to increase our staffing. I think we do have the current bed capacity, especially if Hospice Hawaii can come in and take some of the palliative care needs. I think we can possibly have the bed capacity now as we get into the 4,500 range, 5,000 maybe. We would have to definitely beef up on our staffing. We'd have to actually add additional doctors. And that is one of the things I did sort of a segue is that I want to, I'm really appreciative of the communication that we're having with Lanai. They've done a lot for us. They just repaved our driveway, which is nice. They contributed. They're looking at doing the Serenity Garden. But the biggest thing we're doing now is we have ongoing, continuous communication about where they're wanting to go so that we can sort of keep up. If they're going to be bringing in a lot of people to do construction, we need to know so that we can start planning. If ultimately where their goal is, so that we can also planning in step. So I'm encouraged that we are sort of really truly trying to grow in lockstep with them, so that what they're thinking is not in a black box, or what we're thinking is in a black box, so that we're thinking together. If we get to 6,000, we will have to figure out how to add more bed capacity, for sure. But we'll get closer to breaking even, so there is a trade-off.
Was it confirmed that the state of Hawaii is now giving you another $20,000 for room renovations? Did you see that?
I did. It's small. We're trying to figure where. I don't think it's been encumbered yet. I don't think it's ultimately been released, but I'll have to go back and verify that.
I know, because a lot of the, in the hospital itself, a lot of the patient furniture is very old. And it would be very, very nice if we can upgrade it. We're also trying to get the Hawaii State Foundation of the Arts to give us new paintings. So brighter paintings. But that's coming along, and we're taking baby steps. Yeah. We're taking baby steps, but it is working.
It's absolutely working. If you'd seen the hospital 4 or 5 years ago, today, it's really incrementally, we have made a lot of progress, not just in the aesthetics, but in our clinical capacity. I think the expectations of the community are much higher because we're being able to deliver those services. I think we have the community engaged and working with us, and obviously with the new ownership group with Mr. Ellison and his team, that's re-energized the island as well. So I think it's exciting times ahead. Healthcare is a difficult initiative. It's a difficult thing to do, and it takes a village to deliver healthcare. We're good that we have other partners here like Straub and the family, the HC, the Lanai Community Health Center. So I think we're in good stead, and we'll just keep working at it. And thank you again for the opportunity to come on and talk about the services.
Well, I do know that the hospital, the Lanai Community Hospital, has a wonderful staff. A lot of really, really dedicated people who have been serving our community for many years. And it's really nice that now we're finally getting the community as a whole to recognize that yes, our hospital is old. It's going to be 68 years old this year, but we have great potential, and that's what actually counts. This potential to.
Sure. The emergency room is less than a year old. The lab is less than a year old. The waiting room has not even been born yet. So there's a lot of new as well.
I have this recurrent thought that if next time I get sick, I may come to Lanai for health care. What do you think, Nick?
Jerry, we know where you're coming from. You're coming to Lanai so you can recuperate at the Four Seasons.
There you go.
The Lodge of Welly. I know.
That's its own kind of health care, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. That's right.
Well, that's Nick Hughey, the director of the Lanai Community Hospital, Alberta, the Jetley, our lady about town in Lanai City, a farmer, a journalist, and TV host here on Think Tech. And we're talking about portraits of Lanai. And Nick, you get the award for being the first portrait of Lanai on our Think Tech series. Thank you so much for coming down, participating. We really appreciate it.
Right. I'm looking forward to the golden pineapple.
Aloha, you guys. Till next time.
Thank you.